Welcome to 11375. My name is Anita Pierce, and I am your Chief Experience Officer. At 11375, we offer strategic alignment solutions specific to you and your business goals, and also connecting everything with social impact. So if you are looking for a really amazing organization where we help you to focus your strategy and connecting it with social impact, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. We are on all the social platforms, and you can contact us at 11375. Well, hello, hey there, good people. I hope that you are doing really well. I'm really excited to have you join us today. Um, for this specific episode of the real journey of entrepreneurship. I think it's really important for us to learn from one another, to learn and to gain access to more knowledge and more information by participating and supporting other entrepreneurs who are within this space. And guess what? I am not alone today because talking to myself sometimes it's good, sometimes, you know. But welcome to the real journey of entrepreneurship. I'm so glad to have you join us today. My name is Anita Pierce, and I am your host. And also, I am the founder and CEO of 11375. 11375 provides business resources and solutions that help to allow you to grow your business to the next level. I can say to you that guess what? I am so excited because 2025 presents so many new things for me. First of all, it's the road to 50, right? So I am going to be 50 on November 3rd of 2025. And yes, 11375 is my date of birth, not a zip code, not up from Queens, I'm from Brooklyn. But also, there's another milestone that I'm super proud of because when I think of transitioning into what I call full maturity, whatever that means these days, I am proud to say that I have been diligently working on in this craft of 11375. September of 2025 will be 10 years for me. And what does that mean, right? That means, first of all, I'm uber proud of myself, right? Because a lot of times when we are in this space and we are, dreaming and visualizing and going through the process, we're trying to figure out whether this thing is going to work. We're taking something from a piece of paper, vision boards out of our phones, and really putting activity behind what it is that you are visioning. And I can tell you, being an entrepreneur in this space, it's not sexy, right? It is requiring consistency. It requires really developing and maturing your belief system as the person behind this dream. It's very lonely, right? What I mean by very lonely, because you have to be willing to find a crew of like-minded entrepreneurs who are, somewhat on the same pathway. A lot of times you don't find that until, a few moments later, a few years later, that you find your tribe that can help to really support you through the process of, challenging times, or that they really understand that although it may appear that you're doing well, a lot of times you may have not gotten paid, you know, that week or the following week, unless you have a process in place where you have multiple streams of how to generate revenue within your business coming in that you allow that to now happen and to be in place. So I can tell you that when I say I am screaming from the top of my heart now that I can say I am uber proud of myself, I can, because I know the work, the impact that I have had, a lot of it silently. I don't always promote and go, yay, this is what's happening. But there's a lot of silent activity that I know that I'm living deep within my purpose. So I want to bring along a new friend. Today, we are going to be speaking with Denise Edwards, who also is in the space, a serial entrepreneur, and also will be able to share, some of the challenges and also the experience of what Denise's journey in this space of entrepreneurship is. So, hey, Denise, welcome.
Hey, Anita, welcome. And
How
thank
are
you so
you?
much. I'm great. I'm great. And I really loved like what you just mentioned about just your journey of 10 years. So really congrats on that.
Yay,
I'm
thank you.
I always say I'm a junior entrepreneur, so I look up to you. Definitely.
I can tell you that, first of all, thank you. It is one of those things that I can definitely, it's, because when we're starting, we're hiding. I don't know why we do that, but
Yeah.
like, we low key, I'm in business, my little business. No, it helps me to maintain my overall life. I am not uh uber wealthy where I just have like disposable income that I can just run around and do whatever I want. I'm getting there. But I can definitely say that I've learned some lessons along the way. So, Denise, please tell us who you are, what you have been engaged in. Tell us about your business, what it is, what you do, how do you make impact? Do tell, Denise.
Yes. So my name is Denise Edwards, of course. I was born and raised on the beautiful island of Curacao. That's what I always represent.
Mm.
But also lived in the Netherlands and still live in the Netherlands. I've traveled quite a lot in the world. So different places, also lived in different countries. So that actually also provides the context to what I'm going to actually tell you guys. So I am the founder of Saaslaunch. What we actually do is we're a consulting company that helps early stage technology startups with fundraising and capital raising. So
Mm.
anywhere between, let's say a startup is in their pre-seed stage up until Series A, that's basically where we're kind of like, the go-to consultancy firm. And basically what we help, depending on which stage they're at, we help with, if it's a really, really early stage pre-seed, we help with the understanding of how to actually pitch to investors, really hone in on the value proposition, really look at the pitch deck, and then also make a strategy to really focus on connecting with investors. And that's actually through the full process. Also with consulting and everything around that. Financials is also something that we do. And so we basically make, I would say, like startups investor ready and then connect them to investors to just make it very, very simple.
Perfect. Now, I have a couple of questions, but I'm also curious as to why you got started in
Yeah.
this specific space.
Yeah, to be very honest, like I have never thought of being in capital raising. This has not been on kind of like my, I guess, my future perspective as a an entrepreneur. But I actually started in technology, or at least in sales. So I started in sales when I finished my master's, or actually during my master's. So I did my master's in the Netherlands and in Spain, and so I started working in sales, just kind of like to improve on my skill set, because I did know at that time that I did want to have a business, but I don't think I was ready, obviously, at that time with kind of like the skill set that I had. And so I had to kind of like think back or think forward, as in, okay, what are the skills that an entrepreneur needs to have? You need to be very good in presentation, communication, and all that, all those aspects. And so I thought, okay, what is I guess, a job after, let's say, my master's degree that I could do, that I can actually, work on the skill set in just kind of like one encompassing, I always find that word difficult, encompassing job. And so I started in sales, because you have to present yourself, you have to know how to negotiate, you have to know how to influence. And so I started in sales, did that in a recruitment firm. And then I actually got recruited for a company that was based out of Spain to work in Africa, in Guinea Equatorial, to be exact. And that's where I was an international consultant, but also in sales. And then from there, actually, I got recruited for LinkedIn. And that's where basically my technology, yeah, I guess late technology career started. So I worked for LinkedIn, I worked for Oracle, and then I worked for a smaller scale up now, which was based out of the Netherlands. But then I was focused on the Europe and Middle East and Africa region, and then also APAC, so Asia Pacific. And so from that point of view, or from that perspective, I started actually Saaslaunch, which actually started as a sales and marketing service, just because I have the experience of doing sales for these technology companies. And then one of the clients that we served asked us to help them with the fundraising side of things. And that's where that whole process began of where we're now actually standing with fundraising. So we raised funds for them, and then another client followed suit. And this is now where we're just on a fully focused fundraising path. So again, this is not something that I have thought. I always feel, and I'm a spiritual person, that in this case, God, the universe has just brought me on this path. And I've had many moments where I actually really doubted if this was my path, and sometimes still do, but I'm now more than ever like confirmed on like all of like the signs that I'm getting that this is the path that I need to walk in. And so yeah, that's kind of like in a nutshell, a little bit about like the background, and where I'm at currently.
So beautiful, beautiful transition, because now I'm going to get into the meat of what I heard that you are engaged in. So, capital access for
Mm,
small businesses.
yeah.
So I
Specifically
work. I'm sorry.
technology.
Go ahead.
Specifically technology. So software as a service and technology.
Specifically technology. So I'm
Yeah.
going to, um, you know, think about some of the clients that I work with. So I am a consultant, also a business coach to many small startups. And one of the things, generally speaking, now I know that you specialize in technology, but generally speaking,
Mm,
gaining access or the courage to pitch your business or to be able
right.
to sell, to influence, clients to purchase, or really what I say is believe in your cause that you're doing.
Yeah.
How do you navigate? So, from the businesses that you work with, how do you navigate, you know, dealing with the mindset first, as it relates to, because I just mentioned, that, it's tummy still ticks after,
Mm,
even though you're in business, because what happens is each phase allows you to step into a new opportunity.
yeah.
Each phase is not the same. You're building for them, what I believe, on the next phase. How do you deal with the mindset?
For the clients or for
For the
myself?
clients, or if you want to share both ends, for the clients, or even for yourself through the process, I'm open to either way.
Yeah. So for the clients, specifically for the founders that we work with in technology, there's a lot of education that we need to give because there's a lot of misconceptions when it comes to capital raising. So, for example, I had a conversation yesterday with a founder, and he mentioned, so they, to give you a bit of context, they already have a minimum viable product. They already have, let's say, some customers on board, and so they have a great founder team. The vision is quite clear. Those are actually aspects in the early stages that we look at. And he said that he thought that he wasn't ready for fundraising, although I know from my experience and also the consultants that we work with that he is ready for fundraising, because he does have a great team. He does have the vision. The solution is a great solution for a great problem to be solved. We also look obviously at the TAM, total addressable market, and then SAM, of course. And so we believe that he's ready for fundraising, but he doesn't believe so. And so we need to do a lot of education around why we believe that he is ready to take that next step. Because again, there's so many misconceptions in this way, and they can go into like more depth on this. But just to give a concrete example, what we then do is basically provide examples of other, let's say, founders that were in the same space or in the same, let's say, kind of like, I guess, phase that they're at currently, and give them examples of what has been done and what can be done, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, it's not about we don't want to be convincing. We just want to for you to be opening up your eyes to what other possibilities there are. Because at the end of the day, I can't force somebody to be, to do something that they can't or they don't want to do. but I can actually provide you examples and also bring the vision more to life so that you can actually see where you can get to instead of being in your own mind. Because that's one thing that I, as an entrepreneur, to just kind of give it an example personally, like you also said in the beginning, entrepreneurship is a lonely kind of like, a lonely journey, or it could be a lonely journey. I do have, coaches and um, my therapist as well, Sunny. She's amazing. She really, really, really helps me through a lot. And so you do have certain people that you can actually confide in, but it's still a lonely journey because you're making the decisions. Like I'm making all of the decisions. This week, for example, I'm like all overwhelmed with all of the decisions that I need to make. I'm also going to start my own podcast next week. So thank you so much, Anita, for your inspiration, of course, on this.
Thank you.
And so that is, it's a lot, right? So when it comes to mindset, it's really, for me personally, and I don't know how it is for you, Anita, but for me, it's personally prayer is number one thing. Putting God first in a lot. Um, Having people, even if you have one or two people that you can confide in to really talk with, right? And then kind of be kind of like the sounding board. And just really having faith and working towards that. That's the thing, because it's not for the faint-hearted, as you also mentioned in your introduction. It is really not. And in the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey, which was years ago, I had this vision of, okay, in 2 years I'm going to be at this and this level, and then in 2 years you're you're not at that level, and you're like, oh my god, this is much harder than I thought. And if I knew what I knew now, would I actually start entrepreneurship? I'm actually not super sure, because it's really not something that um yeah, it's really something that you need to really believe in if you really want to move forward, and if you really want to build the vision that you have for your life, if that makes any sense. And yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's what I want to share.
Yeah, Denise, and I want to share that I cannot do what I do at my core is anchored in my faith.
Mm,
Um, when I mean anchored, and even when I have challenging times or the world is in turmoil, I
yeah,
dig deeper because that's my safe space for me,
sense.
right? That's where I get all of my answers. That is where I am challenged to grow. That's where I am held accountable in that deep searching or deep prayer, because that is it for me, right? That's it for me.
100%.
The other thing that you mentioned is about, you know, the level of mindset um, that you must have requires having what I call OGs in your life, or original guardians, or coaches, or peers. But those have to be properly vetted,
Yeah,
right? So I'm not suggesting that you just go and, just throw whatever it is out into the atmosphere. And this is what I mean by that, meaning that you are talking to everyone about what you're visioning. It's not for
yeah,
everyone.
yeah,
It is
100%.
for those who can uplift you, that can challenge you to grow, that can hold you when, there's tears, or help you to navigate solutions on how to find, you know, um, systems or technology that will help you to become better and improve. So for me, I'm doing some things that I've never done before over in this year that I'm planning, and it's terrifying. But am I going to stop? No,
Exactly.
no, I'm not going to stop. And having, just a good network, trusted advisors, because when they understand um, what you're doing, generally, you'll move faster, and get into your dreams. But the other thing that I want to um, provide a bit of an education, right? Because um, gaining access to capital this way is new for many. So would you be able to share? So you mentioned some language, such as being like ready. I think you mentioned Title A,
That's right.
right?
Yeah,
What does that
PC.
What does that mean?
Yeah. So when it comes to the stages, I can give you context. So pre-seed,
Right.
seed, and series A in the technology space is basically kind of like the stage that you're at. If you have, let's say in the pre-seed stage, you usually have an idea. So it's just an ideation phase, right?
Mm.
And that's basically where you have an idea, you do see a problem in the market, and you just need the capital to maybe make an MVP, like a minimum viable product. And
Right.
that's kind of like the pre-seed stage. When you're in the seed stage, you usually already have a product, a working product. You do have maybe some type of customers already on board. It's maybe a small batch, but you already are revenue generating, even if it's in the early stages. And that's where you're in your pre or in your seed stage. That's what we consider seed stage. And so when you go to series A, that's already when you have, you further develop the product, because you invest in the seed stage. You invest actually usually more to further develop the product and in marketing and sales, because you want to accelerate sales and marketing in that case, and customer acquisition. And then when you go to that next step, which is going to series A, that's where you already are, revenue generating, and you just want to get to that next step, which is maybe a different country, or kind of like a different um, um, I want to say industry, but it's usually kind of like expansion of kind of like the regions that you're focused on. So it's really kind of like scaling in that sense. So those are kind of like the different stages in, at least in the SaaS and the technology space, to kind of like consider.
Okay, awesome. And so I wanted to further inquire. So typically, from what I understand, is when you have those investors investing in a business, is there usually, for the viewers, percentages that are taken? Do they get equity within the company? What does that look like? Are there different terms, that when one gains access to, resources, what are the expectations?
Yeah, good question. So it really depends on which phase you're at.
Okay.
Usually when you're in your kind of like pre-seed stage, really early stages, you have I would say a percentage that you can actually take from, or the investors take usually a percentage, but it's being taken on a note, or a safe note, basically what they call, because you don't have like a real valuation of the company, and it's kind of like a promise in the future. So
Mm.
that's usually equity. When you're in your pre-seeds, in your seed stage, that's where you have a minimum viable product, or already a product, and a little bit of revenue, or maybe sometimes you don't have revenue, but you do have like the further developed product. That's also usually where you can take equity, where it differs between equity and debt, because you have those two ways of financing, but you also have crowdfunding, but that's something separate. When you focus on, let's say, equity, you take a stake, or the investors take a stake or a percentage in the company. That's usually within, let's say, those two stages. Or actually, it could be also in series A stages. Sometimes what happens is that some companies that are already generating revenue, they only want to have that financing. So that means, instead of having a percentage, or that the investor has a percentage of, let's say, your company, you just have maybe a loan, or kind of like non-dilutive, as they call it in technical terms, non-dilutive financing, which is basically kind of like, hey, we give you X amount to borrow, and you pay it back over X amount of years with a certain percentage. And that's usually debt financing is best when you are already generating revenue, because you do need to pay that back. And so the equity would be best when you and again, this depends on a per kind of like company basis, but usually what we're seeing is like equity is usually best when it's kind of like in the early stages. Could be also obviously in the later stages, if you want to also have that knowledge of the investor, because the investor also brings knowledge. They bring a network, right? They bring other resources next to the equity that they're taking, that can help you actually, move forward in your company. If you are a founder that has a great product, you're already generating revenue, and you are not somebody that wants to or needs maybe kind of like other resources, and you just need the money to do marketing and sales, then non-dilutive financing could also be an option. We do have partnerships with companies, international companies, that do non-dilutive financing. So that's kind of like the two things. And then obviously you also have crowdfunding, which is, in my perspective, is best when you have a B2C type of kind of like solution, because crowdfunding is basically focused on consumers. Sometimes I have conversations with founders that say like, oh yeah, we could do crowdfunding and it's a B2B play. Usually in my perspective, it's a B2C play best if you want to focus on that. So there's again different types of financing within, let's say, the equity and the non-dilutive or debt financing. But that's kind of like the way that you can kind of look at it, if that makes sense.
No, it makes a whole lot of sense to me. And a follow-up, right? So founders, right, of businesses. I'm a founder of 11375, and I can tell you that, my next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to buy a business, right?
Yeah, yeah, very
And
nice.
you mentioned early on about, really what it takes to start it up.
Mm.
So in your work, is, leaning in for access to capital for those who want to buy business, is the process the same? Is it looked favorably upon investors if you're looking to purchase another business, already established business?
That's a good question. I don't have a lot of experience with that, to be very honest.
Okay.
I have heard from, I don't know what her name was. I think Cody Sanchez. She's a big fan of buying businesses, and I can definitely see the understanding why that is, because if you have even a relatively okay running business, right, and you can actually, with the experience that you have now as an entrepreneur, because that's very, very valuable. You buy a business and you actually optimize everything. I think that is even a shorter path to actually wealth than if you want to build it up yourself. Although I do also think that building a business has obviously some great aspects to it, but I think at a certain stage, that's something that I'm also looking into. The only thing is I don't have experience so much with that when it comes to the investment part.
No, that's a fair response. And so the reason why I elevated that, um, because again, being a founder, you are creating the culture, the systems, the marketing, uh,
Yeah,
you're creating pretty much the footprint or the foundation as to what you want to build within your business. And I can tell you that I have refined personally, um, what the 11375 brand is, um, and just refining it. And it has taken 9.5 years to figure out, what is really working.
yeah,
And on the flip side, if you have something, because I talked to a few of my, I'm a member of the Goldman Sachs 10KSB, and I have a peer of fellow entrepreneurs that now we've been keeping in contact. We've been, throwing ideas off each other, sharing. So one of the things that often comes up is the question of, if you had to do it all over again, would you be a founder or would you buy a business? And it's a toss,
yeah,
about to the point that you mentioned about, you really get to create what it is that you have been dreaming in this specific space. Yes, you can do it in the new business that you purchase. However, there are it's a different feeling when you see something that you took off of a piece of paper, out of a phone, and now it comes to fruition. So
exactly. And can I point out also? I think it's a great point that you mentioned with, let's say, buying the business, because again, I that's also something that I want to do in the future. I also think it really depends what your background is when buying the business. Like, I think you, as being an entrepreneur, Anita, you have the experience, right? Like, you have 10 years of experience. So if you buy a business that you understand, it's going to be such a short kind of like cycle for you to kind of make it more or optimize it more, if it's profitability or whatsoever, with the experience that you have, than if you don't have experience and then you still need to build that up while you've basically bought a business. But that's kind of like my perspective. So I completely understand, and I definitely would also, take that route probably in the future.
yeah. What are some of the challenges that you encounter
In entrepreneurship.
in entrepreneurship, and also in servicing your clients?
So challenges, I would say it's a lot of education.
Mm,
That's one thing that I've actually over the last, because I'm currently in Miami, and I've been to a few networking events here, and it's very interesting to kind of see kind of like the thought process around capital raising. A lot of found there's a lot of education. That's one thing that's for sure. So it takes a little bit of a longer time to educate before you can actually service them. That's one thing that's for sure. And yeah, I think that's kind of like the biggest challenge, if that makes any sense. And capital raising is also not the easiest, right? You need to have so many things in line, and that's where we kind of like filter on. So we
mm,
filter on the founders. Okay, are you a founder with that can communicate their vision, their plans, everything in an eloquent way, right? Because a lot of the founders that we serve are they are developers, and so it's not always the easiest for developers to communicate their vision, and that's something that we help with as well, right? So
mm,
that's one thing. And then next to kind of looking at the founders, do we believe in the vision, right? Do we believe in the solution that they're having, and can we kind of like see what other competitors are in that space, right? Can we look at what's the total addressable market, how, like, all of those aspects that needs to be in place. And even if you're not there yet, that's where the coaching comes in, that we do actually, right? So that you can start becoming ready for that. So that's really in kind of like that, those early stages. But let's say you have all of those aspects and you're still kind of like doubting if you want to raise funds. That's also kind of like the education around that. Like, why aren't you why don't you believe that you're ready, right? And then educating them around, okay, these are examples of what we've done before, what we've seen before, etc. So it's a lot. I feel at this moment in time, it's a lot about the education of it. And also what I've personally seen as well, because I'm coaching a lot of founders, is just the belief in themselves, like really
mm,
believing. And it's very interesting because I see a difference between men and women as well in that sense. Me being a woman as well, like I feel we need to just have a little bit more of hand holding, a little bit more of support. With men, it's kind of like, okay, when they believe it, they just go for it, if that makes any sense. And we, especially me, and I knowing having coached female founders as well, it's kind of like we just need more hand holding, if that makes any sense. And so that's an interesting perspective over the years that I've seen as well. But it's, again, a lot of education, a lot of helping with the mindset, the belief that it's possible. Because again, capital raising is not easy. There's a lot of things that you need to have or your ducks in a row, as we say it. But it is possible, and that's where we come in to help you with that. And so that's kind of like I think the two biggest things that we're seeing currently, and also obviously in the past, is really about the mindset, the perspective. And also I've had a conversation, this was a few days ago, with a US founder, and he mentioned, he was like, yeah, capital raising now is not the best because the climate is not the best, etc. But he said that, like, I think maybe a year ago as well, because he had another conversation with me, and I was like, well, I mean, there's never going to be then a right time if you're always going to look at the climate, right? So what are the variables that you have control of, where we can actually move the needle, right? So those are perspectives that we also need to help educate. And hopefully, for the founders that are obviously looking at this podcast, it's gonna, bring some new perspective and ideas for them as well. Because I think, the thing is, Anita, for me, the biggest thing, and this is, I think you'll confirm this as well, we want to bring impact, right? And for me, the most important thing is helping founders bring impact to the world, whether it's through their solutions, right? Because it's a form of building the world, or making the world a better place. If you're a founder, you want to make a solution that helps X target audience, right? To improve their lives or improve whatever. And so I think we need to look at what's the bigger vision here. What's the bigger vision that we're doing? It's not only capital raising. No, it's helping these founders bring their, let's say, solutions to life, and helping other people and making the world a better place. And that's where we believe that's where we, kind of shine in, if that makes any sense.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Um, so I too believe about the importance of creating a pipeline of impact. And I also have been, um, experiencing those who have come to me, pretty much in tears, right?
Mhm.
Because they just are so overwhelmed with looking at and hearing, what's happening, right?
Yeah.
So this is how I ground myself. One, I stay current, but I try not to focus my lens on what's in front of me, like physically, right?
Yeah.
And this goes back to faith.
Yeah.
Uh, Faith requires me to think about and visualize things that I want to see in the future, in the present. So that's what's driving me. And so I'm always lending and thinking about what's fueling my passion and also what am my purpose, right? Because reality is our purpose doesn't change, right?
Yeah.
You're
Exactly.
required to, you know, figure out what your purpose for and to continue to work on that purpose, in that purpose, and on that purpose. And for me right now, it's really connecting resources, right? And also ensuring that when people work with myself was a member of the 11375 team, that they're getting connected to where they want to go in the future. And
Yeah.
that sometimes means just having a conversation. Um, but I also wanted to touch back on what you talked about, just in terms of how the belief system of women, right? Um, we're very gifted, right? This is what I believe. And a lot of times it does take someone reminding us about either our years of experience when we worked in a corporate environment, years of experience in, making impact within the community, creating and getting your first sale within your business. That requires significant brilliance and creativity. And I believe that what separates us is how confident we are, right? Not arrogant, not, like I think I know it all, but just a level of reminding yourself consistently
Yeah.
that you are here for a purpose. You have to try to live on purpose and also work hard and make it happen. But that life connection is something that is a continuum, right? And that believing in yourself um, does help. It does also help when someone else on the outside sees you and can give you that boost of encouragement when you need it most, right? And
100%.
so I want to just say that because a lot of times, Denise and I have never met in person, but I am a what I call an energy, and I can sense certain things that, we're in alignment because Denise said some things and I'm like, yep, I believe that. I said some things and Denise was like, I know. And it's a vibration. So also utilizing this gut intuition that we
100%.
have been gifted with.
Yes.
Um, Most of us just kind of like, oh, on a second guessed it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what it's there for. Use it.
100%. 100%. 100%. That's one thing, Anita. And I'm sorry if I actually interrupted you,
Yeah,
but
fine. I paused for a reason.
that's one thing. My intuition and I believe yours as well. It's just I always say it's our in Spanish we say brújula, which is like our compass. Our
Mm,
compass.
yes.
That's the thing, and that's where when you are still with yourself,
Mm,
when you're praying or meditating, I believe that that's like when you're getting ideas, that's kind of God, the universe, putting those ideas in there for a reason. And of course, you can obviously see if you get signs, to just get confirmation if this is it or not. But that's kind of like your intuition talking, right? And so that has personally helped me a lot.
me too.
And I had to train this, right? So it's something that I knew I had, and women have that just automatically, right? We're intuitive beings, and that's kind of like one of our powers or one of our strengths. But this is something that I had to actually work on for myself as well. Like sometimes I didn't trust my intuition, and I was like,
Mm,
it's not that. And so through therapy sessions, that came about that, hey, no, this is it. This is exactly what you're thinking. This is the intuitive nudge that you're, getting. And so you could go for it, if that makes any sense. And so, yes, I completely 100% agree. Faith, intuition, and just hard work. Well, I wouldn't say always hard work. It's also smart work. I think it's a combination of both. Because it's also a belief, if we want to work hard, that we're going to work hard, but there's also a belief that we can change, that things can flow as well, if that makes any sense.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. What brings you joy within the work that you're engaged in?
I like helping. And this is something, it's a very general or generic word, helping, but I see that as well with kind of like my friends group, my family, just helping people get to their next level and just improving, I guess, their lives. I think for me, because I'm a person that likes to consistently grow, consistently improve my life, I like to share that with others. And so with founders, it's kind of like helping them maybe to change their mindset, helping them get to the next level when they're kind of like investor ready. It could be anything, if that makes any sense. And so I was also thinking, and this is a question that everybody can ask, like, okay, what is it that you would do if you wouldn't like earn money for
Mm.
it? And for me, it's still kind of like helping people. So whether it's in capital raising, whether it's in coaching, consulting, whether it's my friends or my family, it's anywhere, any way where I can see like, hey, this is where you can improve in to get to that next level of growth. That's where I actually kind of like, that brings me joy, to be very honest. And just seeing people grow, and just, yeah, because I like doing that for myself. So I like doing that for the people around me specifically as well. So I think that brings me joy. And just, I'm from the Caribbean. I just like to, go to the beach, meditate there, just see a beautiful, beautiful, I guess, just a beautiful blue water in this case, and just be there and just enjoy and be with my family and friends, and just enjoy the moments together as well. So I think those two aspects bring me joy.
So I want to say, this is a side note. Um, it's interesting that you are building a picture in my head about, just waking up, going to the beach, hanging out. Last year, I had an opportunity to do a solo trip to Colombia.
Mm,
And I want to tell you that, so I've done, solo trips before, but this was like, the first real one that I've done, in a space of being a mom,
mm.
being married, like this whole new life. I never didn't do anything like that until last year. And so when I went there, I remember um, just being very observant, about, first of all, fresh fruit. Um, yeah,
Yes.
it was something different. I just kept eating this pineapple. Like, I stayed in a location where they provided like fresh fruit. It was like a buffet style. It was like, you had the option to eat places, but it was that fruit that I was drawn to.
Yeah.
And when you mentioned the beach, I remember going on an excursion where you can go and um, go through the sulfur process, and dipping in, your skin comes out
Oh yeah,
amazing.
you were in Cartagena, I think. Was it?
And it
Yeah.
was it was it was it was amazing. But before we got there, right, my driver says to me, "You want a mango?" And I was like, "Sure." So we pull over, right? And I'm thinking, "What the hell? I'm about to die. Why are we pulling over?" Right? So, he's a native from the country, but he has, designated spots that he goes on to. So I remember he was like, "Get out." And I'm like, "I'm not getting out." It was a whole big debate. I'm telling a long story, but there's some method to this, right? So I finally like trusted. I'm like, well, if I'm going to go out, right, whatever. Me thinking weird. Already got in the car, whatever. Wrong thinking. I get out. He was like, "Pick the fruit." I've never picked my own mango before.
Ah, okay.
So me and myself, I'm like, this is amazing. But it was on someone's property, but you had the option, if you wanted to pick your own, you could.
Yeah.
So when you talked about being from the Caribbean and just having that regularly accessible, that's what I immediately thought about. So
Yeah.
I'll share a long story just to say that, there is about you creating a space of wellness for yourself. And that's what immediately brought me to just being able to pick my own mango. So I'm a native of the US, from Brooklyn, New York. That was the first time that I ever picked my own fruit like that. So that's what you
Wow.
generated in my mind. So long story, but I wanted
Yes.
to share because I think it's important for us to collectively as a community, entrepreneurial community, understand that where we come from, and being open, to trying new experiences that now I'm desiring to do that going
Yes.
forward.
100%, Anita. And it's so nice that you picked your own mango. I mean, it's maybe for other people it's something small, but just the meaning of it, right? Like you having fresh fruits and vegetables. I mean, my mom, by the way, she has like her whole garden with fruits and vegetables that she cultivates herself.
Mm,
um but really being from the Caribbean, and I know Latin America as well, like we, and maybe I'm biased, we have like the best fruits and vegetables just fresh, right? So like and that's the reason why I love the Caribbean. And I've traveled a lot and I've lived in different places, but nothing beats Latin American and Caribbean when it comes to like just overall food, drinks, everything. So yeah, I totally commend that. Super cool that you did that. And hopefully you come to the Caribbean and then we can show you around as well. Freaking the
no, I'm gonna
freaking
take you on that.
coconuts, picking any type of fruits. It's really nice.
All right, I gotta, so here we go. I will definitely look into that as to fulfill that request. I think it's important to do so. I
Yeah.
want to not end the conversation, but just have us to lend to our learnings. If someone was looking to or thinking about going to investors, could you provide like 3 or 4 tips where one could become ready
Yeah.
to step into that lane?
Yeah, I would say the number one tip is first find a consultant or a person that has experience in capital raising to have that conversation with them and understand, hey, I'm at this phase of, let's say, my founder's journey, or this phase of my business. Am I investor ready? And that person can obviously provide those tips. That's one thing that I would do. I think second thing is I would get maybe some type of advisory board in a sense. I mean, like, of course, you can have like an external consultant, but maybe people that have been in the same industry or kind of like in the sort of same kind of like, I guess, project, if you want to call it, and get their feedback on, hey, this is where I'm at. What do you recommend when it comes to capital raising? How far do you think I am with the product? Or if I don't have a product, what's kind of like the next steps? But I would say, like, really get advice first, because what we're seeing again is a lot of founders are in their head because they've been reading things online, they've been consuming things from TV, and then it's like, well, that's not completely the truth, or it's not completely the steps that you need to take. So I would say, if it's 2 tips, get somebody that has experience and just have a conversation with them, like, hey, this is where I'm at, this is where I want to go. Is it now the time to raise capital? Because we've also had conversations with founders where we're like, well, you're actually not ready. We just had, like, me and my consultant had this was a few weeks ago. We had a founder based out of Fort Lauderdale, I think, but based out of Florida, and he has a great platform. He's already starting to get some clients, but we were telling him he's not completely ready. You just need to do these and these steps, and then once you're ready, then we can actually further engage. And so it's just having that conversation, I would say, with somebody that has the knowledge to tell them, hey, you're ready or you're not ready. I would say just those 2 tips, because it really also depends when you go into depth in the project and where they're at. That's where you can actually provide some good feedback, if that makes any sense.
Is there a checklist for when you're vetting new partners to work with in your space? Meaning,
So far.
like, so for example, in the government contracting space where I provide strategies, I always say do your homework, right? And checking out those who you will be paying for services. what is there a checklist, things that um, potential founders should be looking for? Like, how do we know what's real? How do we know? How do we know that? How would we know that? Where do we search? Is it, through reviews? Like, provide us some tips on that.
Yeah, I would say first off, if you do your research, first off, LinkedIn, see what their profile is about. You can Google their name. It's the same as you can Google my name. I also have my personal website where I put everything on. Yeah, you can do reviews, but I think it's the best to always have a conversation with that person because, again, when you have the conversation, that's where you can feel the energy of the person. The same way as you mentioned, Anita, like we haven't spoken before, but we can feel each other's energy. And so that's the same thing that I would recommend is like do your research on the person and then have a conversation with them and see like, hey, how does it actually make me feel? Do I really trust this person or whatsoever? Because at the end of the day, that's basically what is also important, right? Do you have a connection with that person? And then next to that, you can go through case studies. We have case studies on the website, but also on my LinkedIn profile. And I would say like, I think when you speak with a person, you're going to understand that if they have the experience or not, basically. And that's what I always say to my founders is like, okay, if you have a person that you trust, or at least that you want to potentially work with, have a conversation with them, see how you feel. Because at the end of the day, I wouldn't say it's like a marriage, but it's a close connection that you have with a person. And so you do want to make sure that you have a good, I guess, good feeling with a person that that they can help you further, if that makes any sense. So that's what I say, because there's a lot of people that are online that are also showcasing their stuff, but then when you speak with them, it's a whole different vibe. So I always say like, just have that conversation with them, and then for yourself if this is something or the person that you want to work with or not. That's the simplest way to actually do it.
Okay, perfect. So, Denise,
Yes,
I'm
Anita.
not going to let you go, but I'm going to let you go. But before I do, right, some
Yes.
really fun, curious questions. And while I'm doing that, I'm actually going to share how you can contact Denise. Denise does have a full service link of loads within Denise Edwards Co. On Linktree. So you could definitely pull through Instagram, LinkedIn. All of the links are there, which is beautiful. So, my wonderful question.
Yes.
Fun. What do you prefer these days? Like to take like a good nap or to do like some all-nighters and reading books? Is that your thing?
For fun, right? Should I choose between one or the other, or can I have
Yeah.
like a it really depends on my mood a little bit, because I'm quite structured in like my business life. I like to flow a little bit outside of my business life, so it really depends on kind of like what I'm in the mood for. But one of the things that I love doing, and it's also my passion, is traveling. And of course, I mean, it's something that you don't do each and every day, but I do just love seeing different countries and cultures, and that's kind of like really my passion. And if it's something kind of like more, let's say on a daily basis, I just, it can be anything. I can just go and sit in the park if I'm like just too much in my mind and just, observe, the grass. And just here being in Miami is already a blessing. Like I really, really, really like it here. If I'm on Curacao, I love to go to the beach and just meditate. It could be being with a group of people that I just met and just having fun. That's like really my thing. Like that's, again, I really like to meet new people. I wouldn't say like I'm such an extrovert, but I do like being in social circles, and sometimes I just like being with myself. So it's really the combination of both of those things. But those are things that light me up, and just having new experiences and just living life. I think that's kind of like my forte probably in life.
So, other curious questions in terms of like favorite snack. I'm just gonna choose smoothies or ice cream. What's your
Okay.
preference? And it could be vegan. It's not.
Smoothies are ice cream, right?
Or
Between
ice
those.
cream. Yeah. What's your preference?
I think I'll prefer smoothies. The thing is, because I'm a bit lactose intolerant and I don't drink any milk, it could be also vegan ice cream. So that's something that could work. I really like that. But I think If it's smoothies, I like anything fruity, fruity, and yeah, fruit smoothies without like milk, just water and just pure fruit.
Are you wearing sneakers or shoes these days? Heels.
I would say both. So if I go to events, it's probably heels, or if I go out, and then sneakers is because I just like doing exercise each and every day. So you'll find me on both.
Awesome. In 3 years, where are you taking your business?
In 3 years, my vision is that Saaslaunch is the kind of like premier consultancy for technology startups, specifically SaaS, where you can actually not only raise funds, but you can also be, if you come through us, you can be partnered with maybe accelerator programs, or just kind of like the whole technology ecosystem is something that at least my vision is that there's a whole ecosystem for technology startups, whether it's capital raising, whether it's marketing and sales, whether it's maybe building an MVP. Like that is where we are going to be positioned in. And so, yeah, hopefully that's going to come to fruition.
It will. Just keep consistent.
Exactly. Thank
Make
you.
a lot of mistakes. It will. And don't be afraid of the mistake, because a lot of us are like, I want to fail. And part of the process. Part of the process. So,
I
Denise
love that.
Edwards, thank you so much for joining today. I really, really learned so much more about who you are, what you are engaged in, and making full impact within this world. So, thank you so much for joining the real journey of entrepreneurship and family, folks. Denise's link is Linktree Denise Edwards Co. And spam, but be polite. Share and be polite. No need to, contribute to the madness that's happening in this world. So, Denise, thank you so much for joining. I look forward to connecting with you in the future. And please, you're always welcome to come back and join the real journey of entrepreneurship and create impact through our conversations. Thank you so much, Denise.
Amazing, Anita. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone.
Take good care. So, friends, family, Denise shared so much wealth of information. And I hope that, if you're watching, that you were taking notes, but you can also watch this on replay on all the platforms at 11375. So I'm really excited to have met Denise virtually. And just like Denise, if you want to be featured on the real journey of entrepreneurship, we want to hear your story. I promise you it's a good one, because it's important that the more we're able to share information about what we're doing within our spaces, there will be one that we will impact. Will it be you next on the show? Thank you so much, Denise, for sharing all of your positive energy and also helping us to learn best practices when we are looking to gain access to capital. And so, if you are interested and you want to buy ad space, please do not hesitate to contact us traditionally, 718-691-8966. You can DM us on platforms at 11375. And I also wanted to share, because we also are at that time of the year where small businesses are looking to gain access to staff. And sometimes, as a founder, you do not always have the immediate budget immediately. So, wanted to just share, and this is for New York State, New York City, and it actually probably is mostly connected to the other states as well. You just have to connect with your local state department, and they will direct you to the right resources. But here in New York City, if you need to become a work site, you can become a work site for the Summer Youth Employment Program. There is a deadline that's looming, so make sure that you check it out. It is worksite, WORKSITEPREAPP.NYCSYEP.com. And so if you're looking to gain access to that workforce, it will impact you, because you are and will be responsible for managing a group of capable youth. However, the budget and the funding comes from the city or state. And so you do not have to pay or have them on your payroll, but you do have to have something for those participants to engage in on a day-to-day basis to help you to grow your business. So that's one way. And I also want to just remind you, one, to be kind to yourself. Two, to be sure that you are consistently believing and working on you, your community, and your business. But you got to take care of yourself. So, sending you lots of love. Thank you so much for joining this episode of The Real Journey of Entrepreneurship. I so look forward to having you follow us. Again, please do not forget to like, share, and follow us on the platforms. We are at 11375. Thank you so much for joining. Take good care. So long. This week, I've been thinking about the importance of social impact and what that looks like specifically for the 11375 family. Social impact for 11375 is not just something that we don't do. It's embedded in our DNA. It's our part of our business model. We think and believe that it's really important to combine the art of making money and also being able to connect those specific resources to communities or things that elevate and provide good for the greater good. So for us, it is important that for the success of each project that we include social impact.